Hi, and welcome to my Nerdy Week Roundup. Hi everyone, it's your favourite Atomic Blonde here with my Nerdy Weekly Roundup. So let's get straight into it. Let's see what I've been watching this week. And obviously, let's kick off with probably the most Marmite episode, I think, so far for The Last of Us. There's been some quite interesting takes on episode 3 about Bill and Frank. I personally quite enjoyed the episode. I thought it was incredibly well written, very well acted. I thought it was kind of sweet. They had a lovely relationship, and it kind of played out, and quite an unusual choice, I guess. I mean, this is the sort of episode you normally get around. I'd say maybe episode 5, episode 6, bit of a filler, where they've sort of obviously driven the main story forward. We've then sort of bonded with the main characters, which we haven't really done yet. Ellie is not particularly likable. As I've said on previous shows, I'm not really feeling the actress Bella. No, appreciate she's young, so she might get better in the role. And I don't know how much is her and how much is how the character's been written. I've not seen her in anything else, so I don't know what her acting chops are like. So a bit of a strange choice to have this episode as episode 3. But like I said, I think it was really interesting to sort of see, how different people have coped with the apocalypse. And you've got this guy, Bill, who's a, doomsday prepper or survivalist, whatever you want to call them, who's almost just been living for this moment, really. He doesn't like people, he doesn't like civilization, and he just thought it was great. The best thing ever happened was for the people to get killed and go away and leave him alone to live his life. And he found this little town and, blocked it all off, built his booby traps and sealed himself in to, just ride out the apocalypse for as long as he could. And that's till one day Frank falls into one of his traps for the clickers and zombies, whatever they're calling them. He basically lands in a hole. It's like he wasn't one of his other traps and blew his head off, so that was fortunate. And then obviously it transpires very quickly that they're both gay, and they end up having dinner, which evolves into something else quite quickly, and then obviously Frank ends up staying. I know this is quite a big deviation from the game, from what I've read and seen. Again, it's hard to say. I mean, I haven't played the game. I don't have a love or affiliation for the source material. So I'm quite I'm kind of glad that they sort of expanded this story and put more of a positive spin on it. And I think it's really lovely to sort of see that he had someone who hated people and all his life was about was surviving. And then at the end of it, living isn't surviving. Having a living life isn't just about surviving, it's about living. And he learned that through his relationship with Frank, and he learned there's more to life than just existing, loving, caring, sharing, looking after, that somebody's more important than yourself, basically, that you sacrifice yourself for somebody else. It's not just about surviving, which I think is a lovely kind of message. And so the actor's done a great job. It's very believable. I know some people sort of criticised it, sort of shoehorning it in because it's a gay story or it's the message. And I really didn't feel there was like the message in there. There was, I think if they were having lots of conversations around, oh, well, we couldn't have been together if the world ended, and it was just so hard for us to be our authentic selves before the apocalypse. There was none of that. It was just two people found each other at the end of the world and fell in love. And, you know, it's kind of like the heartwarming story that even at the you know, at the darkest of times, that this person who couldn't trust anybody not only learned to trust but to love. You know, probably in the most difficult time ever to trust people, he found a way of doing it. And they, you know, this sort of little bubble of humanity still existed. And now that they're both dead, you know, that's probably the last vestige of something like that, something normal, something pre-apocalypse, you know, that just two people still sat down and had dinner together, and tended their gardens and done normal things. So I really enjoyed the story. I'm a bit like, I'm not quite sure why it was episode 3. I think it would have worked definitely better maybe later on, but obviously not seeing what's coming up. I don't know if it might have ruined the pace of the show. Only time will tell. And also, if this episode does actually help to drive the story forward in some way, that might make sense why it was episode 3. But I think, you know, there's probably lots of political or, you know, appeasing maybe, you know, the access media with a story like this early on, which is a shame that, you know, you just can't make shows and make the vision you want without sort of having to, you know, kowtow to what the access media may or may not think. But anyway, I say I really enjoyed the story. It's quite reflective that a lot of people like this episode. The fact that Ellie and Joel weren't in it, or not much. They sort of bookended the episode. It starts off with, obviously, you know, we've lost Tess, and he was saying, right, we're going to go see Bill and Frank, and, you know, get supplies to go take her where she needs to go. And that's how we find out that, and it kind of goes a flashback of how Joel knows Bill and Frank, and Tess knew them as well. And then obviously they find the bodies, and they left a note for him, and Bill's just sort of, you know, and there's a sort of a throwback in the letter to the game. So basically in the game, I believe Frank had got attacked and infected and hung himself, left Bill a note to say that, you know, he never really liked him anyway, and he was fed up with them always being stuck there and never taking any risks and all that kind of thing, which is a pretty horrible thing to find out. You know, if you spend I don't know how much time they meant to have spent with each other in the game, but it's still a pretty horrible thing to find out that the person that you cared about said, I never even liked you. Yeah, so there's a throwback in the letter for Bill to sort of say, I never really liked you, Joel, but I do respect you. But I think part of that is that Bill didn't like anybody other than Frank. He just didn't like people. So almost like to earn his respect is kind of more important and better than actually him liking him. And sort of, you know, leaves him a key. Says, help yourself to anything, you know, the weapons, food. And most importantly, now I've got a car and a battery to be able to take. And it is a note, there's a line, you know, look after Tess, but obviously Tess is already dead. So it kind of spurs Joel on to protect Ellie and obviously get her to the doctors for the cure. So yeah, overall an enjoyable episode. A bit of strange place to put the episode, but very well executed. I did really enjoy it. I think they had a lovely relationship, and it wasn't all smooth sailing, ups and downs, and like, to have to spend that long with someone, just the two of you, takes some doing. Most of us can't do it when we only have to spend a few hours a day with each other, let alone all day, every day, year on year. So kudos to Bill and Frank, and a lovely piece of writing, incredibly well executed. I guess like next Monday next week we'll get back to the story and see what happens. And say time will tell whether this was placed in the right sequence or not, or whether it's just really apparent that a very well executed episode was just put in just to get the Emmys. We shall see. But overall, still enjoying it. When they sort of, no matter how well these sort of episodes are executed, and if it is kind of shoehorned in, it can be a little bit, what are we going to get in the future episodes? Are you going to start playing a bit more fast and loose with the source material? Don't know. But I think the next episode will be very telling which direction it's going in, whether they pick up the story, how they pick up the story. Obviously, I think from the game, Ellie's actually gay as well. She's a lesbian, so I'm sure that's going to come up. Obviously, there's going to be some sort of episode around that as well, which is fine. You know, not got a problem as long as it's well acted, well executed, well written. Absolutely fine with it. Yeah. So yeah. What else can I say? The Last of Us, still going good. Enjoyed the episode. Strange timing, but enjoyable for me. Anyway. So a new show on Paramount Plus. Obviously, there's a lot of fanfare around this. The return of Buffy herself, Sarah Michelle Gellar. Now, obviously, she's not the star of the show. She is like a co-star. She does have a relatively small part in this show. And when you read some of the reviews, that's reflective, like, oh, there's not enough Michelle Gellar in it. She's only in it for 5 minutes, blah, blah, blah. But she was never, you know, sort of ever sort of like she's the star of the show. So I think people are a little bit, you know, it's not going to be Buffy. She doesn't. She's made it quite clear that even if they do a reboot or something, she doesn't want to play Buffy anymore. You know, she's outgrown that. She loves her past. She loves the fact that Buffy's still talked about. She loves the fact that people still watch it, and you know, new generations of girls are watching it. But you know, that's you know, and I kind of feel like, yeah, give the woman a break. let her play something else. Yeah. So the premise of this, obviously, clues in the title, werewolf drama or teen drama. And again, I think it's one of those ones that you really have to take with a bag of it's teen drama. It does have quite a throwback feel to it, that sort of 90s, noughties feel to it, sort of early WB, CW, but the writing is better and the acting is better than CW. But it does have that kind of very much teen drama feel to it, that, you know, sort of Riverdale type thing, very glossy, lots of pretty people. And yeah, it starts with there's fires, forest fires, and I think it's California. And it starts with this school bus, and obviously there's a group of school kids, not unsurprisingly, on a school bus. And the fire's sort of coming towards them. There's usual kind of shenanigans on the bus, and obviously somebody's beating up someone and gobbing off like teenagers do. And we're introduced to a couple of the key characters. Everett, who seems to be your modern teenager that, you know, just has anxiety and panic attacks and a complete, you know, just can't cope with anything. And he's literally on the school bus onto his therapist because he's run like 3 miles that morning. He's taken his meds, he's done yoga, and he's still anxious, and God knows what he's got to be anxious about. Who knows? You know, you're a teenager. It's not that hard, is it? Yeah, so it's sort of setting out that he's a bit of a wet lettuce, like everything bothers him. And but saying that, later on you get to meet his parents, and oof, blimey, his mother's biatch, absolute biatch. Like, talk about like cold-hearted, zero feelings, like so much pressure on this kid. You kind of do actually have a little bit of empathy for him, having parents like his dad's a complete cuck, wet lettuce cuck, who just kowtows to his absolute psychopathic mother, who basically, like, so they caught this school bus. There's a forest fire. All their phones start beeping, and you know, they're trying to evacuate the place. So they all pile off the bus. And obviously there's a load of animals all start running out of the wood, you know, deers and rabbits and bears and whatnot, and basically hits the road where this school bus is and other traffic is, and some of the kids and the people get knocked down. And then we sort of see 3 or 4 kids like just sort of being whipped out, and there's all this sort of smoke and fog, and sort of kids just being picked up and flung, and people being clawed open, and like 2 or 3 of the kids get bitten. Then they kind of, all end up in hospital. And then this is when we first meet this kid. He's Everett's parents, the anxiety kid. And he always basically blames him, and he's stop overreacting, stop wasting these people. He's in bed, he's been bitten, he's got a great big gash, and obviously he's got smoke inhalation, and she's basically just going stop being wasting these people time, and let's just get you home. Wow, no, how are you okay? And then this is where we kind of get introduced to Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's an agent, and she's investigating that potentially these fires are being started by arson. And they want to speak to the kids on the bus. And this whole thing around her character is a bit weird, although they're all acting kind of weird. So there's boy Everett, this girl Blake. Blake is clearly very, very pretty, very slim, very petite, and they've got this worst makeup ever, these little red dots all over her skin, she's got really bad acne scars, and they're just these little red dots. It's so she's all self-conscious and always wears a hood up, and for some reason she doesn't have a phone, she doesn't have email, she's not into social media, she's just not into all that kind of thing. Whether it's I think maybe she can't afford it. She's from a very poor family, and she has a young autistic brother, and then the father who used to be an alcoholic, and the mother's left. So, and Everett's from a very wealthy family. But anyway, she got bitten, but then sort of pulled Everett to one side, and he got bitten. So, but she sort of saved him from getting hit by a horse or something. I can't remember. So there's all this going on. And then when they're in hospital, Everett receives this phone call, and somebody's telling him he's got to get out, he's in danger. Somebody's going to come and kill him before the next full moon. And obviously it basically sort of transpires that Everett and Blake have obviously been bitten by this werewolf, and then we do see this werewolf, this big black werewolf, sort of tracking them. And so I'm guessing it's if he doesn't kill them by the next full moon, they'll stay werewolves. So he has to either kill them before the full moon, or they're sort of permanently transformed. So obviously so they start to heal incredibly quickly, and before they can barely see the wounds, but they can see on each other, sort of almost under the skin, is sort of glowing, I guess, as the infection's spreading through them, and they have some sort of psychic connection because I guess they've been bitten by the same wolf. Then we're introduced to two other very typically teen drama, brother and sister, stunningly gorgeous and all this, and what a surprise, the brother's gay. What a surprise. But so there's lots of him pashing and making out, and at some sort of there's these forest fires everywhere, and everybody's been evacuated, but they're having time to have a rave, and there's DJ, and there's always hot ash coming through the ceiling, and they're all just partying as you do. I couldn't quite figure that out, but anyway. And they're adopted by and we find out he's a ranger, and there's some flashbacks that he basically discovered two little wolf cubs in the forest, and rescues them, obviously 16 years ago, whatever it was. And then then there's in the second episode, you see him sort of talking on the phone, and he's sort of saying, "Yeah, I found these cubs, but no sign of the pack." And you see a little paw touching his hand, and then when he looks around again, it's turned into a little human hand, and obviously he's kind of freaked out at what the. So obviously these two kids are werewolves as well, which he found in the woods and had adopted, and obviously he's helped keep their secret all these years. So as we're getting close to the full moon, their sort of powers or their senses, one has a very acute sense of smell, but it seems to be getting heightened. Everything, the changes different this time. Now, this could be because this other werewolf's around, this alpha that's been driven out by the fires. We don't know. And so going back to Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, so she's this fire investigator. She wants to speak to the kids on the bus, specifically Everett and Blake. They suspect that potentially one of the kids on the bus is the arsonist that started the forest fires, because typically arsonists like to obviously watch what they've done But they're kind of zooming in on this Everett and Blake, which doesn't really make any sense. You know, you've got this kid who's full of anxiety, who's like scared of his own shadow, and this very withdrawn girl. And then obviously, like, because she's now got this werewolf blood and she's healed incredibly quickly, all her acne scars, I mean, her pinpricks have like disappeared. And, oh, look, she's all glowing and stunning. So, okay. Yeah, it's a bit of a mix. I can't quite put my finger on it. I kind of enjoyed the first 2 episodes, but they are very ploddy. They spent way too long on this forest fire and the kids on this school bus. It just kind of went on and on. And then in the second episode, you know, they've only sort of just got out of hospital, and it's only about a day later. So it's almost like it's happening in real, like 2 episodes in, it's like 2 days have been covered, maybe 3. And we see another one of Everett's friends, Blake. He had a broken leg at the time of this incident, and he got bitten, but he's not rapidly healing. Like, his leg's not healing, and you can still see his bite. So we're not sure whether he was or wasn't bitten by the werewolf. He sort of only thought he was bitten by a coyote. He goes to the hospital for a checkup on his leg, and also gets a tetanus shot. He then reacts really badly to the tetanus shot, like he's in pain. It's literally burning him, which then would suggest that he has been bitten by a werewolf, even though he's not healing fast. And then he gets one of these phone calls to say, you've got to get out. He's going to come and kill you. He tries to get out as best he can, but he's obviously hobbling. He's still got a leg in plaster. And he rings Everett, who's with Blake, and then they go to the hospital to try and save him. And he's basically going through this wire fence, and he gets his plaster caught on the wire fence. And he's trying to get through, and then he basically picks up this great big brick and slams it against his plaster on his leg. And I must admit, I was wincing when he was doing it. It was like smashing it against his broken leg, and I'm like, oh, blimey. But he manages to get the plaster off, but the wolf finds him. And then you assume that the wolf's killed him or certainly taken him away. And we see Everett, they sort of get to the hospital. Everett just finds the plaster. At this point, Sarah Michelle Gellar's character turns up, and she's, oh, we want to ask you more questions. And she's just always really smirky with it. So I can't quite figure it out. Like, ooh, we want to come answer you some more questions. I'm going to answer our questions. She's like, I don't know. It's like, it just doesn't make sense why she's zoned in on these 2 kids when she's not. So does she, is the arson investigator a cover, and she knows that she's actually some sort of X-Files type FBI agent type thing, or she's really is just an arsonist investigator? Why is she targeting these kids who are on the school bus and being all sort of smirky and funny with them, like there's some sort of master criminals? I don't know, it just doesn't seem to quite work. I can't really figure this show out yet. Yeah, I mean, I'd say check it out, have a look. It is quite slow. It's quite well written, though. I mean, it's well written, well acted. But it is very much a teen drama, so very throwback to sort of 90s, noughties teen dramas. But it really needs to pick up the pace. The next episode, it really needs to kick in with what's going on. Who's Sarah Michelle Gellar really? If she's just a fire investigator, why is she even in it? Jury's out on this one, so I'm going to carry on watching it. Let you know what I think, and whether I stick it out to the end. I'm really 50-50 on this one at the moment. It just needs to kick into something and stop plodding. But it's a shame because the acting is pretty decent, the writing seems pretty decent. But I think it can't quite make up its mind what it is right now. So yeah, so that's Wolfpack. That's Paramount Plus. Where it's dropped weekly, so we've only had 2 episodes. It drops every Friday, so it's quite good. We've got a couple of shows that are dropping weekly. It seems to be quite a lot on Paramount. Drops weekly. I guess depending on what channel it is on in the States. So yeah, let's see where that one goes. Now I'm going to completely contradict myself now, because most things on Paramount are dropped weekly. Or actually, might have dropped weekly, but I'm just behind the ball. And that is Tulsa King. So I did say last week that I'd heard some good stuff about this. I'll check it out. I'm only a couple of episodes in, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't hang around at all. And Stallone's great in it. I mean, Stallone, you know, you get what you see is what you get, right? So again, you know, it's a premise that he is in like the mob, and quite senior in the mob, and he's in prison for whacking, as you say, whacking someone, and on his sort of, you know, and it transpires that he sort of took the fall for his boss and his boss's son. Obviously never grasped, never gave anybody up, and he spent 25 years in prison. He gets out of prison. They can see the mob boss, and obviously there's a whole, the family, like the world has moved on. You know, it's been 25 years, and there's basically no place for him now. The role he had has sort of been filled, and they just basically say there's you know, that, you know, you just don't fit anymore. Like everything's changed. Now, unsurprisingly, he's quite pissed at this, right? He's given up 25 years of his life. His wife divorced him when he went to prison. He's estranged from his daughter, who was obviously very young at the time, and he didn't want to distress her, and it was too upsetting for him, so he told her not to come visit anymore. And he's not seen her for 17, 18 years. So he sort of gave up everything, and he sort of, you know, he says, like, you know, I was loyal, you know, I took the fall, I didn't rat anybody out, I've done my time, and now I come back to find that you know, you're not even going to look after me. And one of the sort of upstarts, you know, who's considerably younger than him, is pretty much sort of, you know, sort of taking his position, gives him a bit of a gobby mouthful, and he just punches him in the face, and basically ends up, this guy has to have his jaw wide shut. He like does such a number on him. So anyway, they sort of say, no, of course we're going to look after you. We appreciate what you did. What we want you to do is go to Tulsa. It's like there's no families there. There's no setup. You know, it's just, we want you to go and sort of set up, you know, from scratch. Is like there's nobody there that set up the business in Tulsa. You know, we'll pay you $5,000 a week. Off you go. So he's not obviously thrilled about this, but he's like, what choice does he have? He's literally got, you know, the money he made in prison, and the suit on his back, and that's it. So he agrees to do this. He gets to Tulsa, gets in a cab, and he's talking to the cabbie, and the cabbie sort of, you know, makes reference to him like being like gangster, and initially like Stallone sort of takes offense to this, and he goes, what do you mean by that? And the taxi driver's a black guy, and he's like, you know, gangster, so like he's in gangster rap, you know, gangster, and he sort of explains like what the term means now, and but he's also like, yeah, you do look like a mother gangster kind of thing. And as they're driving along, they see a marijuana shop, you know, legalized marijuana shop. So he's like, what is that? And he sort of finds out that obviously medical marijuana and the various substances are now legal. You can just sell them from a shop. So he pulls over, goes in, asks to see the guy who runs the store. They got this one guy, this big sort of overweight guy, who's sort of like the security. And Stallone makes sort of like, start getting like little, he asks to see the boss. He kind of gets shooed out. He asks for like a tire iron, doesn't have one, but he's got like a thermos juice thing, and he goes back in and just smacks the guy in the face with it, and says, right, I want to see the boss. And obviously this little dweeby, almost like accountant looking guy comes out, and he's like, oh god, are we being robbed? And he's like, no, I want to see the books. So he looks at the books and sees how much money this guy's making through selling stuff legally, and basically also makes him a proposition that he can't refuse, and says, like, you know, you carry on trading legally, and I'll find ways that, you know, that the government doesn't, you know, take so much in taxes and stuff, and, you know, we'll have a beautiful partnership kind of thing. And then they head into town and get to a hotel, and he's discovering the world of smartphones and apps and having Ubers and all this kind of thing. He stumbles across, he's in the bar, and he stumbles across like a hen party, and because like the way he's dressed and stuff, they go, "Oh, you're somebody famous," and he's like, "Oh, I'm sort of nobody." And one of the girls says, "Oh, can I have a picture of you anyway?" And he was like, "No." And they're like, "Oh, you're being a bit mean." And he's like, "No, I just don't like my picture taken." And then they're like, "Oh, that's a shame, because we're going to invite you to a party." And he's like, "What sort of party?" And they're going to, because Hen did it, go karaoke singing. And he's like, "Well, that's not a party." He's like, "Well, what do you call a party?" Cut to strip club, shots, music, like a bit of Nelly playing, and yeah, so he ends up with one of the hen party, and obviously it's been a while for him, so not, it doesn't take much imagination to figure out what happens next. And then they get talking afterwards, and he asks like, where were you when Kennedy was killed? And she's like, "What? Are you being serious?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, I was like in high school, or senior in high school. And she's like, "What?" And she goes, that makes you like he's like, "Yeah, 75." And she's like, "Oh my God, I thought you were like at least 55." He's like, "Oh, it's the age gap too big." And she's just like, "Oh, I'm out of here." And he goes, "I don't even know your name." And she's like, "Good." And she's like out of there. And it then transpires that she's a federal agent or a police officer of some description. And they get information that ex-mob boss has arrived in Tulsa. She's like, "Oh God, this is so awkward." So, he's been there 5 minutes. He's already set himself up in business. And there's a scene where it's almost like Pretty Woman in reverse, not in that way, but with this taxi driver guy. He was just basically, "Right, okay, you're going to come work for me. You will be my driver." And the guy's like, "What? Are you insane?" He goes, "I'll pay you $2,000 a week." He's like, "Okay, I'm in." And he then sends him off to buy a car, and he was like, "I want this sort of car, blah blah blah, go get one." And then he comes back empty-handed, and he's like, "What's going on?" And he's like, pretty much going like, "They wouldn't serve me." And he's like, "What?" He goes, "Well, I went in and I sort of said I wanted this car and I wanted to pay cash, and they sort of refused to sell it to me because straight away they assumed I was into drug dealing and I was this and that because I'm black." So he goes with him to the car dealership, and it's sort of cowboy type guy running it, and again he just sort of says, "Oh, I sent my associate to buy a car and you wouldn't sell it to him." And he was like, and sort of starts backpedaling, goes, "Oh, really sorry, it's just a misunderstanding." And he's like, "Yeah, it's weird because I basically you didn't trust my friend here because basically you assumed that he's been in trouble, and you assumed this, that, and the other thing because like he's black and like here's me in a suit and da da da, and you feel you can trust me." And he's like, kind of, he just looks at his mate, the guy goes, going, "How ironic, huh?" Which one of us is right? And again, he just punches the dude in the face. He's like, "I'm going to call the police." And he gets the phone, and like, here's the phone, and sort of smashes him with the phone. And basically says, "I want this car, $50,000, boom, done," and drives out the showroom. So, yeah, it's just took that. Absolutely, this show is just taken off with a bang. So he's out of prison. He's been sent to Tulsa. He's already set up this like a tax fraud scheme through the marijuana shop. He's sorted himself a car. He's got himself a driver. He's managed to sleep with a member of the authorities. And then there's also like a few people we've seen as like found out that he's out of prison, and we don't know what the connection is, but it already seems like he's got a bit of a target on his back. And the mobster that he punched in New York has now got his jaw wide shut. He wants some sort of retribution, and the guy's like, "Look, he's my dad's friend. He's just out. Like, call your jets." And he phones him to say, like, pay him $100,000 and he'll go away, kind of thing. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll send him something. Just make sure it's not. If it's ticking, don't open it." So he's just like, so yeah, I absolutely love the first 2 episodes. no messing, straight in with the story. Like I say, what you see is what you get. Yeah, I'm really interested to watch the rest of it. It's a lot of fun, a lot of swearing. But again, it's that sort of throwback to, you know, the sort of Sopranos and things like that, where it's just, you know, yeah, what you see is what you get. And you know, Stallone's it, you know, when it's prison, sort of late 90s, out he comes, and still hustling the old way, you know, kind of thing. And you know, would normally be like, lay low, don't draw attention to yourself. Nah. He's just going around punching people and flashy cars and all this kind of thing. It's just absolutely great. So yeah, really interested to see where this goes. Again, like Stallone is Stallone, but well written. Supporting characters around him, very good. And yeah, you can sort of obviously he Googles his daughter and sort of phones her, and yeah, she's sort of on a bar of it, but you can sort of hopefully, you know, is there going to be some sort of reconciliation with his daughter? Is he going to try and have a relationship with her? You know, he's already got a couple of people gunning for him. So, but you know, he can pretty much hold his own. But yeah, I really enjoyed these first two episodes. Like you say, it's nothing groundbreaking, nothing revolutionary, nothing like you haven't seen before, but done really well. Yeah, just fun. So really looking forward to the rest of the series. Again, on Paramount, I think the whole series has dropped now, or whether it dropped in one go, I'm not sure. But I'll let you know next week where I've got to and if it's still holding up. But so far, so good. So yeah. Yeah, so I think last week I mentioned I'd heard a rumor that the Terminal List had got a season 2, officially announced by Chris Pratt this week, and they are making True Believer as well. So again, as per my comments last week, how that close that'll be to the source material, we'll have to find out. But the fact that they're saying they're making True Believer, interesting. But really excited for that. And also, it looks like we're getting a prequel as well to the Terminal List, which Terminal List, which I guess kind of makes sense, knowing that, you know, there's only a finite amount of seasons that you can make, given we know that the spoiler that the lead character Chris Pratt is dying of a brain tumor. You know, like how many years can he run around with this brain tumor? So yeah, I guess it did make sense that they'll do some sort of prequel. Hopefully that'll be good. I mean, I'm not aware of any books that support the prequel. So, but if the author of the books is involved with the development of that, hopefully it'll be just as good. And season 2 will be as good as season 1. You know, again, as long as like there's not interference and people can just be left alone to you know, to make what they want to make, without, you know, the studios getting their claws into it. I find Amazon a really bizarre combination of things that, you know, you get things like Reacher and the Terminal List, but then you get Wheel of Time and Rings of Power. And they've obviously heard that Phoebe Waller-Bridge has got a clause into Tomb Raider now, and Lara Croft even. And that's an Amazon Studios, and you think, God, if she's got her mitts on it, they're absolutely going to destroy it. Rumor has it that rather than being a Tomb Raider and doing all the ballsy stuff that Lara used to do, now she's like, you know, getting the artifacts and returning them to the countries they were stolen from. I mean, please. I mean, it's the opposite to what her character is, or was. You know, again, just another IP on the altar to be slaughtered by bloody Fleabag. Given that, you know, all the noise around Indy, the noise around James Bond, you thought this bubble would have burst by now, that she isn't the savior of television that everybody thought she was going to be, and people are pretty bored with her shtick already. I mean, I watched season 1 of Killing Eve. It was okay. I mean, everybody raving about it. It was all right. I think I got 2 or 3 episodes into season 2, and I'm just out. I haven't watched it since. I mean, the acting's good, but whatever. Yeah, I just don't get it. I don't get what the sort of status and the hoo-ha around her is, and why she's rated so much. I don't know. I guess some people right time, right place. But with things hopefully changing, she's not going to be around for much longer, and we can only keep everything crossed for Tomb Raider. But it sounds like, or looks like, another one's bought the dust. Just leave IPs alone and make something new. I mean, she wrote Fleabag from scratch. She wrote Killing Eve from scratch. So she's capable of doing her kind of shtick. So just do your own shtick of feminist archaeologist nonsense and leave the IP alone. Anywho, hopefully, well, there's not going to be any IPs left for them to trash. So hopefully they'll all take a long walk off a short pier very soon. Whatever that looks like. But that's it. That's it for this week. So yes, some positive news, some good stuff, some not sure stuff. I'll keep plugging away, see where it all lands out, and I will come back and tell you next week. Has Wolfpack picked up, or are we gonna? And does Tulsa King carry on smashing it out of the park? I hope so. And see what The Last of Us brings us on Monday. Let's see, how do they follow up that episode? And hopefully, I mean, episode 4 needs to be big. It needs to be a big episode. We need some action, and we need to see or develop some connection to Joel and Ellie. Because right now, do we really care? I mean, again, like with all these things, you sort of just end up rooting for the main character, i.e. Ellie. Do we care if she dies? Not really. So let's hope they can sort that out too. So anyway, have fun. Have a good week. Remember to like, share and subscribe. And do leave me any comments of what you think about these shows. I'd love to know your thoughts. And I will see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.